we now begin our service of hope and joy for celebrating the victory that Christ has won for Dave Hindermann. And so we begin with our opening verse from Psalm 121, which can be found in your bulletin. I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from?
My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth.
He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber.
Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep.
The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand.
The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night.
The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life.
The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forever.
I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth.
first lesson is from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 11 and 28 through 31. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those who have young. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will not run and not grow weary. They will walk and run and not be faint.
At this time, we will receive a reading of the Christian eulogy delivered by Dave's children, Mark and Jennifer. So if you would please come to the front at this time. I'd ask that you join me in the eulogy responses as printed in your worship folder. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away.
Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming here today to pay the last respects to Dad. I believe he is with Mom now, looking down, and is so happy to see so many dear friends and relatives here today, and also acknowledging those who couldn't make it out here to be in person. He was a very blessed, lucky man for sure to have all of you in his life. Of course, it's not easy, obviously, to speak here at Dad's memorial, but I have very fond memories of being up on in this very place as an acolyte growing up in this wonderful church in the youth choir during countless contemporary Christian performances and musicals that we did, and also playing the classical guitar. Some really good memories of that. So I'll say a few words about Dad right now, and then of course we'll have a chance for others if later on at the repast to share some memories and that kind of thing later on. But I have one word to start with: privileged. I'm privileged to give this eulogy and to be David's son. I believe those of us who knew Dad either briefly or a few months or years, or with a deep, long-lasting friendship with Mom and Dad, we'll all use the same word. So why do we feel this way? Well, some would say it's his gentle giant, others his compassion and empathy for fellow human beings. Many admired his strong athletic ability, and others his wonderful sense of humor, many times self-deprecating in type. But I think especially here we're touched by his devotion to God and his service right here at St. Paul Lutheran Church. A dear friend of mine recently said, "Boy, your dad was a really kind, gentle, loving, strong guy. And the world could use more of those kinds of guys." He says, "Being a therapist who works with men, I am just thinking about, just in the moment, just spontaneously, that the world could really use more guys like David here." So I thought that would be good to share with you today. So I believe to know how Dad became the man that we knew him to be, we can maybe go back and look at his roots and his upbringing. So Dad was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the funny little story is that he was actually without a name for roughly 2 weeks. He was known as Baby Hindermann. So I suppose that his father, our grandfather, was in the Navy and was away. Maybe there was some back and forth to figure out what name they would end up giving Dad. But at any rate, he did end up at Ramsey High School in St. Paul, close to the university in the old fairgrounds. Previous to that, though, he did spend several years in the early 40s living in Colfax, Wisconsin, with his mother, his older brother Mark, and the younger sister Mary. And this during the time where their father was in the Navy and was stationed at various locations, notably the Bronx, believe it or not, for Minnesota. It's kind of interesting. Jacksonville, Florida, Washington, D.C., among other places. So I know this must have been tough on his mom, brother, and sister, and dad. They stayed in very good touch with their father via an amazing correspondence of letter writing, daily sometimes, but certainly every other day or weekly. And that was very typical of the families before, during World War II. So my grandfather was eventually stationed in the Pacific during the 40s during the war. And so that was a tough time, obviously. Single mom, dad's mom. But I know that she was also a very quiet but strong, resourceful woman who helped to teach her kids to be responsible, resourceful, and it was instrumental in molding the person Dad would become. The father lived a bit for about a year or so in Duluth, Minnesota as well. One interesting story was that the dad loved to tell her, not at the time loving it, but he recalls jumping into a large pile of snow, which would land on his tush, and it turned out to be a large concrete block, which eventually, which I think he was alone because he had to crawl by himself for about half a mile back to home. So that shaped something. And there was also during that time, I told a story about a bully with a hockey stick that was sort of threatening another student, a weaker boy possibly, and Dad stepped in to defend him. So that was an interesting story. Moving back forward when Dad was in high school in St. Paul, he was a star athlete and an A student, was also involved in church and musical activities, and Dad had spoken fondly of those years and has kept in touch with his teammates and friends from those days. So Dad arrived at St. Olaf College in 1958 and as a chemistry major and played football, basketball, and track from the very beginning. And he would meet the friends and teammates that would be part of his academic, spiritual, and athletic life for the next 4 years. And of course, meeting Mom at St. Olaf. And he's kept in very good touch. Mom and Dad kept in very good touch with all those good friends. So as it was put, of course, it was at St. Olaf where he met Sue Edwardson, who reportedly Dad settled on almost immediately. So there was some stories of various dating, double dating with his friends, but when he met Sue, it was an immediate connection for both of them. Dad went on to the chemistry department at the University of Wisconsin in 1962 to get his PhD, and he quickly became lifelong buddies with a new group of friends who I had met many times myself. And during this time, he married Mom. Dad began to work at Bell Labs, and ironically did some work actually in New Jersey before settling into Chicago in the late 60s, where Mom and Dad met another group of dear lifelong friends, and they would reconnect with them later on their return to New Jersey in the 70s. Dad settled in at Bell Labs at Indian Hill, which is a large facility in Chicago, a suburb of Naperville, Illinois. And here Mom and Dad started their family and met another group of lifelong friends. And then we lived in Kansas City for 2 years and eventually moved to Flemington in 1979 with Dad's work moving east to AT&T and spin-offs, Lucent and Gear and so forth, where he led teams towards the advancement of fiber optics and advanced communications technologies. Both Mom and Dad had been extremely active in the Flemington community, and of course at St. Paul Lutheran Church specifically. They were so lucky, I would say, and they would say, to have found St. Paul in 1979 and deciding that this would be their spiritual home for both of them and their family. Of course, Dad was a leader on many levels here at the church, especially spiritual. He served as council president during a very large important expansion here at St. Paul during the 2001 initiative, which expanded the church and the school. And he also enjoyed leading Bible study groups for the adults and for the kids, and of course being involved in the youth group as a chaperone and other types of roles. Dad had a profound influence on myself as a person, with music, sports, and my faith, And it makes me proud to see that these traits and more are already showing in my kids. I have to say, the outpouring of friends of his and mom from the early days, and seeing all of University of Wisconsin, all of you, has been just tremendous, and a good testimony on what positive influence he has had on many. He was a true hero, certainly to me and to others, a man full of grace and integrity. He held high principles, was fair, proud to stay silent on many occasions. But certainly his conviction around his religion and St. Paul is admirable, as well as his honesty, his honest relationships, and strong silent leadership. As described by many, he was highly intellectual, but never made it known, really. His achievements sometimes. Many people have told me that they did not even know that he had gotten his PhD. But he never made anybody feel inferior. A very tall and big guy, as reportedly from some of his friends, but completely unthreatening and kind of a soft-spoken, kind and sensitive human being. Literal gentle giant, which is a term that I've heard many times. He was the quintessential family man. He cared deeply about his wife and children, as well as his extended family and his church community. Often traveling back as many times as he could to his family and friends in Minnesota and throughout the United States. He was modest to a fault, never wanting to call attention to his accomplishments. He was one of those kind, quiet human beings who remind you in a world full of cruelty sometimes, that they're unsung heroes who can help one to not lose faith in humanity. These admirable traits have been passed on to all of us that have been blessed in knowing. We all will treasure the memories of this remarkable human being who enriched our lives so greatly. And I'd like to